violence we saw in 2014, 2015, 2016 happened when we had a Democratic president. Listen, I voted Democrat my whole life. I just need you to understand that this problem comes from Democrats and Republicans. And one way we fight back is by supporting families. The second way we fight back is by advancing new policies. Now let me talk for a minute, because there's a lot of confusion. I just want to teach for a moment, if you don't mind. If you don't mind being students, I'm independent. If you don't mind being students for a few minutes here on Instagram, let's talk. Let me teach for a little bit. Eric Garner Jr., love you, brother. It's so good to see you, man. Please send your whole family my love, and thinking about you all the time, man. I want to teach for a minute about why we say defund the police. Okay, and for a moment, say you don't like that phrase, defund the police. First, just know that for most of the past 6 years, people didn't like the phrase Black Lives Matter. And so I don't really trust the people who say they don't like the phrase defund the police. I don't really trust your judgment. Like, you didn't like the phrase Black Lives Matter, and half of America still doesn't like the phrase Black Lives Matter. So I'm not necessarily taking my political cues from you. I actually love the phrase defund the police, but even more than I love the phrase, I love what it means. And let me talk about it. And let me tell you why I want you to support it. I've done podcasts on it. I would love for you to read the book by Alex Vitale called The End of Policing. The End of Policing. He's a professor here in New York. He's one of my favorite scholars on policing in America. He is also one of the biggest theorists behind the movement to defund the police. But let me teach about it for a moment. I think us saying police need to be defunded is one of the smartest evolutions we've seen in this movement. Now, a lot of people, my background, I'm a historian by training. My undergraduate and graduate degrees are in history. A lot of people think the civil rights movement began in 1954 and 1955. That's when you had Brown versus the Board of Education. You had the Montgomery bus boycott. And a lot of people think that the civil rights movement ended around the murder of Dr. King. Let's just agree with that for a moment. Let's not argue over when it began and when it ended. So that's about 15 years. Well, 15 years is the length, the traditional length of the civil rights movement. Well, from 1954 to 1960, that's 6 years. We're 6 years into this movement. Thank you for putting that link there, The End of Policing by Alex Vitale. Thank you. We're 6 years into this movement, 6 years. And 6 years into the civil rights movement was 1960. Well, in 1960, they did not have the Voting Rights Act. They did not have the Civil Rights Act. They had not had the March on Washington yet, 6 years into the movement. And so we're still early in the movement. And one of the smartest, we're 6 years into the Black Lives Matter movement. It started in 2014. Here we are in 2020. We are in our version of 1960. We have not had our Voting Rights Act, our Civil Rights Act. We have not had our biggest moments yet. I believe that's true. I see you, Lorenzo. I'm going to say exactly what you just said, Lorenzo. Defunding the police is the single smartest evolution of the Black Lives Matter movement. Let me tell you why. And we're fighting for it. And let me explain why. What we are saying is we want to see your budget. Hey, Kristen, if you say Black Lives Matter, show me with your budget. That's all we're saying. Thank you. And I'm not being facetious. Thank you for painting Black Lives Matter on your street. And I mean it earnestly. I actually love it. I think that symbols matter. So I love that it says Black Lives Matter on streets all over the country. But since you painted it on your street, let me actually look at your budget and show me in your budget where Black Lives Matter. That's what we're saying. Defunding the police is us saying, if Black Lives matter so much, Why is the single biggest line item on your budget the policing of black people? Why is the policing of black people the number one line item on most cities' budgets? It's bullshit. And what we need to understand, listen, nobody's worried about people who are in here trolling or anything else. Don't even worry about that, all right? And so people who are in here, don't get distracted. Tune in. Tune in to me. You don't even have to comment right now. What I want you to understand is that when we say defund the police, it's because we are talking about budgets. We are saying we want to see budgets. I was a pastor. One of my friends, a bishop, is in here, and I was a pastor for almost 15 years. And when I was a pastor, there was a scripture that we shared all the time. And the scripture was, where your heart is, there your treasure will be also. Where your heart is, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. What that means is where your budget is, where you budget your money shows us your heart. Do you understand? Your money shows your priorities. Your budget shows your priorities. And if you love black lives, if black lives matter to you, how come your budget doesn't say that? And that's right. And we want to be clear that in every possible way, when we say defund the police, we're saying, listen, and I don't know how many of you, if you're here and you're from Los Angeles, let me know. If you're here and you're from Los Angeles, let me know. Hold on one second. There we go. If I'm turning comments off just so you could tune in for a moment, all right? Because people are getting distracted. If you're here and you're from Los Angeles, do you know that over 50% of your city's general fund, over 50% of the Los Angeles general fund goes to policing? Mind blown. 50% of the city's budget is going to policing. It's that way all over the country. And when we say in Los Angeles, and thank you to the brilliant organizers and activists of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles, and thank you to all of you who are fighting for change in Los Angeles. And I love BLM in LA. They're doing some of the best organizing work anywhere in the country. If you say that Black Lives Matter, why does the LAPD take up 50% of the budget? When schools and public health and jobs and housing get a microscopic amount of the budget, and policing takes up over 50%. A new study was done. I'm just teaching for a few minutes because we want you to volunteer with us at the Grassroots Law Project. And part of what I want to do is tell you what we're doing. We're fighting for families and we're fighting for policies. And I'll get to the third one next. Defunding the police is a policy battle. It is a budget battle. And what I want you to know is that if we're going to fight for change, we have to get in city budgets. We have to get in county budgets. We have to be involved in the federal budget. And let me say this. We pay taxes. You pay taxes anytime you shop. You pay taxes every time you work. And it's taken payroll taxes and other things. Local, state, and federal taxes are taken out of your check. But a lot of us, we're working so hard that we haven't even created the time to be concerned about city budgets, county budgets, state budgets. But if you want to fight for change, you have to fight for budgets. And defunding the police is just us saying, if you care about Black lives, show me line for line. Show me line for line in your budget, how you care, where you care. All right. And that makes all the difference. And so that's a huge part of what we're trying to do. We are working with literally Black Lives Matter Los Angeles as they fight to defund the police. And here's what that means. I was about to say, a new study was just done. Listen, as somebody who has studied police for my entire life, This study was the first of its kind ever done, and it blew my mind. Most police departments spend less than 1% of their time on violent crime. We're fighting for change right now in Seattle, and shout out to all of you who are in Seattle fighting for change. Less than 1% of all of the time of the police officers in all of Seattle is spent on violent crime. The other 99% is spent on substance abuse, mental health, homelessness, traffic violations. They act like when we defund the police, we're going to interfere with their violent crime projects. When in reality, first off, most cities are only solving about 30% of all of their murders. Guess why they're only solving 30% of all their murders? Because 99% of the pie, I wish I could draw it for you. Here's the 1%. 99% of all policing is spent on non-violent crimes. And what we're saying is, shit, if you're going to spend 1% of your time on non-violent crimes, then give us the rest of that 99% and let's spend the 99% on homelessness, on substance abuse treatment, on mental health treatment, on after school programs, on having more social workers, on having a better healthcare system. And we'll leave you 1% of your budget to do the 1% of the work you're doing right now. If that's all you're doing, 1% of your work is on violent crimes, then we'll take the 99% and we can do much better. If there is a brilliant new article, I wish I had a link to it to send you. I'll try to send it to all of you. If you go to grassrootslaw.org, you can sign up to become a volunteer. Or if you click the link in my bio, you can also sign up to volunteer as well. I'll try to email you this article. It says that American police, it's one of my favorite articles of the past month. American police are basically trained for war. They are trained to be warriors and then used as social workers. They are trained with weapons of war to do war, and they show up, as you see in the video on my page today. They show up in black communities all over the country with weapons of war, ready to do war, but they're basically doing social work. They're called when somebody's homeless, when somebody's having a mental health crisis. And other cities all over the country are now dispatching, instead of dispatching the police to a mental health crisis, they're dispatching doctors, nurses, and social workers. That's what they do all over the world. Look at the comments on my video of where they are pointing guns at these 3 young black boys in California. Look at the comments of people all over the world who are saying like, whoa, that would never happen in our country. Like, why is your country doing this? Listen, the way things are in this country, they are the way they are because of policies. So at the Grassroots Law Project, we're fighting for families, we're fighting for policies, and let me tell you the third thing that we're fighting for at the Grassroots Law Project: families, policies, and we're fighting to elect new leaders across the country. And let me teach you what may be a new word. Now, you're familiar with the word incarcerate. I know you are. Mass incarceration. Well, the opposite of incarceration is decarceration. That's a real word. I didn't make it up. Didn't coin it. Well, we are fighting for decarceral. That's the opposite of politicians who incarcerate more and more people. We are fighting for decarceral city council leaders, state legislators, governors, sheriffs, judges, attorney generals, district attorneys, congressional candidates, senators. We want to fight for families impacted by injustice. We want to fight for policies that are anti-racist and make the footprint of mass incarceration and police brutality smaller and smaller and smaller. And the last thing is, you fight for new policies by electing brave new women and men from all backgrounds, from all walks of life, who are pledged in their heart to be decarceral. Did you hear again? That word decarceral is just the opposite of incarceration. We're fighting for people who want to make the footprint of mass incarceration smaller. We actually have not fully started that work at the Grassroots Law Project. Now, if you are a donor or supporter of real justice, we have helped elect new district attorneys all over the country, decarceral district attorneys. So many of you donated to the campaign of Kim Gardner in St. Louis, and you helped her win by nearly 20 points. You helped give her a mandate. Thank you for that. She is a decarceral prosecutor. She is the local prosecutor, but wants to see the footprint of mass incarceration get smaller and smaller. That's who we're trying to fight for. But we don't just need it in the prosecutor position. We need decarceral mayors. Did you know that one of the biggest advocates for increased mass incarceration, it's not the president, not President Trump or Obama or Biden. It's going to hurt your feelings, and you need to read the book. This is the third book I've recommended today. You need to read the book, Locking Up Our Own. Locking Up Our Own by James Foreman Jr. He won the Pulitzer Prize for this book 2 years ago. He's a brilliant professor at Yale Law School, but the book has not gone viral for a reason. Because in the book, he talks about the role of local mayors, local city councils. This is painful. Even the Congressional Black Caucus, even some of our favorite Democrats, in building mass incarceration. Mayors are one of the biggest advocates for more police and more incarceration because they think, and this will be my final teachable moment here, more police don't make communities safer. Let me just teach for one final moment. Wherever you live in the country, think about this. What's the safest community in your town? What's the single safest neighborhood in your city? Think about it for a moment. I have one that's in my mind now. I live in New York. The single safest city in New York. There's one here in Brooklyn that I know of. There's one in Manhattan that I know of. You go there, guess what you hardly see? You hardly see police. In America's safest cities, in America's safest neighborhoods, guess what they hardly have? Police. Guess why they're safe? Everybody in that community not only has a job, but has a good, well-paying job with good benefits. Guess why they're safe? There are no food deserts in safe communities. There are brilliant, well-lit, quality, well-stocked grocery stores everywhere. Guess what? In America's safest communities, everybody has health insurance. They have wonderful doctor's offices, normally with no waits, hospitals that look like shopping malls. They're so clean, so new, so sharp. America's safest cities, you can hardly find the police in those cities. You can hardly find the police in those neighborhoods. They have parks on every corner. They're well lit. They're clean. Listen, America's safest cities, they're not safe because they're overwhelmed with police. That's not true. They're safe because they have 10 other indicators that help make them safe. That's the safety we want for our communities. That's the safety I want for your community. Now, what I see is the safest communities in America want to define safety in one way for themselves, but want to define safety somehow differently for black and brown communities. We're saying, no. We want your safety. We want the type of safety that your neighborhood has. And that safety has everything to do with opportunity. It has everything to do with systems of stability, systems of health, of employment, of income, of education. We're saying, no. We want the things that make your community safe, which is not more police. We want those things. In America's safest neighborhoods, when people have substance abuse problems, guess where they go? Do they go to jail? No, they get treatment. When people have mental health problems in America's safest communities, guess what? They get treatment. In America's unsafe communities, you call 911 for help because your loved one's having a mental health crisis. Police show up with guns. They may beat or kill your loved one. They don't get that in America's safest communities. Rarely do they get that. People get treatment. And so we're saying we want to define the safety in our communities the way we see it defined all over the country. And so at the Grassroots Law Project, we are organizing city by city. We're just a few days away from making this announcement. We are about to announce that we are starting our first 2 statewide systems for the Grassroots Law Project. And we hope to eventually be in all 50 states, but we're going to do it one state at a time. And we're going to start local ecosystems, local versions of the Grassroots Law Project in 2 states. And we're going to begin organizing city by city, county by county, policy by policy, family by family, elected official by elected official to figure out how we can change those states. So listen, go now. You can click the link in my bio. We want you to be a volunteer. We need you to be a volunteer. We have active staff who are literally waiting for you right now. When you go to grassrootslaw.org, or if you click the link in my bio, which is grassrootslaw.org/volunteer, either one that you can go to. If you go to those now, we are waiting for you. We have our staff waiting for you. Once you sign up, we'll get you rolling. And we have actions and action steps that you can take right away. Listen, I'm going to turn comments back on for a second, just because I want to be able to tell you all bye and see you again. Hey, Bethany, good to see you. We want to be able to fight for change in super smart ways. And so if you go now to grassrootslaw.org, you can join us as a volunteer. I love and appreciate you all. I'm going to put this